President Trump's visit to Kenosha, Wisconsin yesterday gave another opportunity to promote healing and unity after the unrest that followed the police shooting of Jacob Blake. Yeah, you would think he met with the family.
I'm sure he did.
And with local pastors and leaders and tried to unify at a time of such pain. The president instead chose to promote his campaign message of law and order.
Yeah, but wait, Joe Biden is also condemning violence, right? Like every day, it seems.
Every day.
Why? Okay, so, all right, yeah, we're all against violence.
The president did not meet
law and order
with Jacob Blake's family, but did speak alongside the Kenosha police chief and county sheriff. Jonathan Lemire, you and Zeke Miller note in your write-up for the Associated Press, quote, Trump stood at the epicenter of the latest eruption of a racial injustice and came down squarely on the side of law enforcement. He dodged questions about systemic racism and took credit for quelling the violence that followed Blake's shooting when the governor of Wisconsin used his own authority to call in the National Guard, in addition to federal reinforcement. The president made clear, even before he arrived in Wisconsin, the purpose of his visit.
I'm speaking really today. I'm there for law enforcement and for the National Guard because they've done a great job in Kenosha. They put out the flame immediately. As soon as they came in, boom, the flame was gone. Now maybe it'll start up again, in which case they'll put it out very powerfully.
Mr. President, can you speak at all? You've spoken a lot about the anarchy that you're referring to. What about racial divisions? Would you like to bridge some of those gaps? And do you think that anything that you're saying is helping with that?
I think it's helping because I'm about law and order.
Do you believe systemic racism is a problem in this country?
Well, you know, you just keep getting back to the opposite subject. We should talk about the kind of violence that we've seen in Portland and here and other places. It's tremendous violence. You always get to the other side. Well, what do you think about this or that? The fact is that we've seen tremendous violence, and we will put it out very, very quickly if given the chance. And that's what this is all about. And you have people that choke. They're under tremendous, I said it yesterday, I said it last night. They're under tremendous pressure, and they may be there for 15 years and have a spotless record, and all of a sudden they're faced with a decision. They have a quarter of a second to make a decision. And if they make a wrong decision, one way or the other, they're either dead or they're in big trouble. And people have to understand that. They choke sometimes.
Yeah. So just like a 3-foot putt. But again, the thing is, Donald Trump's debating himself here. You actually have Joe Biden, who's criticizing violence day in and day out.
But no mention of Jacob Blake?
Yeah, but Joe Biden is able to do two things at once. He's able to do two things at once. He's able to condemn the violence and also talk about the need for reform. You can do two things at once, but Donald Trump, sadly, as Jay Norlinger at the National Review said, is not bilingual in terms of he can't talk about two things at once. He can't talk about...
Yeah, he won't.
Yeah, and also, you know, Joe Biden also talked about cops yesterday. He said mainly good cops, and he understands every time they put on a badge and they go out, they're putting their lives at risk. So... you have Donald Trump, of course, doing what Joe Biden's doing and talking about the difficult job that law enforcement has, except Donald Trump won't talk about the other side of things, refuses to even discuss systemic racism. And the only thing he said about the 29-year-old that got shot is that he feels quite terribly for anyone who has to go through that. Very interesting that also, Jonathan Lemire, as you pointed out in the AP article, Donald Trump keeps lying. I know this is not a shock, but what's a shock is that some people are still stupid enough to believe him. But he keeps lying about the National Guard. Talks about, well, when I called out the National Guard to Wisconsin, it's not how it works. Donald Trump didn't call out the National Guard. He and his supporters, including former governors in that state, can lie all they want. But it doesn't change the fact that the current Democratic governor of Wisconsin is the one who called out the National Guard, something that the Democratic governor of Oregon should have done a very long time ago. But let's just talk about that part of the lie, that part of Donald Trump's misinformation campaign about the fact that he's the one who called out the National Guard and things immediately calmed down.
Well, Joe, first of all, as best we can tell in the few hours the president spent on the ground yesterday, he did not face anyone armed with a can of French onion or minestrone. So that is a positive takeaway from yesterday's event. But there seems to be little effort here to do any sort of healing across the divide or addressing the underlying issues of what led to this violence. To your point first, that's correct. The president, of course, for a few days was calling for the National Guard to be used. That has been his sort of reflexive go-to instinct throughout any times we've seen scenes of unrest, frankly, dating back since the George Floyd protests kicked off in late May. But it was the Democratic Wisconsin governors. He was the one decision. He summoned the National Guard, but the president was quick yesterday, as we saw, to take credit for that, suggesting that that was what has led to the things to calm down in Kenosha the last couple of days. So we can fact check him very easily there, that he did not do that. The governor did. But this is another moment. We've always seen this president have real trouble trying to reach across any sort of chasm here to the other side. He offered very little understanding, frankly, all summer long about the idea of racial injustice, what fueled all of these protests. He mentioned, as we said, Jacob Blake's name not once. He was pressed repeatedly in questioning why he didn't talk to the family. He said that he had talked to a pastor who was associated with the family and that they wanted a lawyer to be part of the meeting, and he didn't want to do that. Yesterday, he suggested that the mother, was a very nice woman by all accounts, but did not pick up the phone to speak to her. And he also gave no credence at all to the underlying issues. He addressed the idea of police violence on black men not once. He sided solely with law enforcement, playing into what, of course, was, at its start, a political visit. This is the argument he has been making. Yep. This is the argument they want to make, that Joe Biden is under the control of the radical left. It's those forces that are tearing American cities apart, and President Trump, strong with law and order, is keeping things safe. That was at the heart of yesterday's visit, Joe.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.